How's Stefan? Or Stefan, how are you doing?
Very good. Yeah, it's a busy period these days because the CFP for Devoxx Belgium is closing in 2 days.
Uh-huh.
Then I'm taking a small holiday before the hectic road to Devoxx Belgium starts. So
Okay.
no, I'm in a good place.
So, Stefan or Stefan is pronounced perfectly, right? Or
Yeah,
no?
Stefan is fine.
Very good. So, forget about the CFP because what I would like to know is what was your first computer?
So my first computer, I actually did summer, how do you call that? I worked as a student during the summer holidays to buy my first computer, which was a Commodore 64,
Mm-hmm.
obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started playing with BASIC, but I must say I remember for my 18th birthday, I asked the assembly code of the Commodore 64. So I was studying assembly so I could write small games and intros, basically where we were hacking games,
Mm-hmm.
remove the security, put an intro in front of it, and then spread those hacked games around the world. That was my first, how would I say that, involvement in the IT space.
So you were 18 and then you got the C64 and then you start playing or you wanted to start programming immediately?
I first started playing games. That's often
Mm-hmm.
how it goes, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then you see all these nice games, and then you wonder how these are made. So I really started investigating and meeting other. Actually, it already happened. Like we had like a small team of people who were really into coding. And I remembered one day I was going for 1 week holiday at another friend's place just to learn from him how he was doing assembly on the Amiga at
Okay.
that time.
Mm-hmm.
So it was already like, finding my way and trying to find other people who are passionate about coding.
Mm-hmm.
And
What
so
was your
for me,
favorite game?
sorry?
What is your favorite game?
Oh, well, you mean on Commodore 64
Yeah, yeah.
or now?
No, now you're not, no time for playing because of your CFPs. But back then, what was your favorite game?
Oh, I remember there was like this game which was something with dungeons, and it was like a cartoon. So
Oh.
it was on the Commodore 64, and it was fragments of cartoons, and you had to like play this guy
Mm-hmm.
on the right moment that he would jump left or right or in the middle, and depending on the right choice, you would see a very beautiful animation where he
Okay.
would fall or could succeed, and that was like unbelievable. I mean, it was 64K
Mm-hmm.
and they were doing crazy things. I remember there was another hacking club in the Netherlands called 1001 Crew, and they
Okay.
were able to put sprites in the border
Okay.
of the Commodore 64. And I was like, how the hell did they do that?
Mm-hmm.
So they were like playing with the frequency and resetting it and making sure that the computer thought he already had drawn, was it 16 or 8 sprites, and they were resetting the counter so they could paint another 6 or 8 sprites. And so that was like really fun. It was just like finding out how these cool things were done, and we're like, yeah, good times, really good times, really hacking and very low level stuff, to be honest.
But cool name, right? 1001, you said,
Yeah,
right?
well, yeah, 1001 crew. We
Crew,
were,
even better. 1001 crew. There were
yeah,
lots of hacking spaces back then. So 64, or was it?
yeah. So our team was called the Commando Frontier (CFR). So the Commando Frontier, and I remember. I mean, we were like putting so we were hacking games, putting it on a floppy disk. Of course, you would pin it so you could use both sides of the floppy disk,
Yeah.
and then we were selling these games, hacked games, around the world, and putting air lotion on the stamp so we could reuse them, and the glue was even on it. So it was really very illegal stuff, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my dad saying like, "I will not go to jail because of you."
How old were you back then?
Well, it was 16, between 16 and 18. And then,
Okay.
after 18, I started to be a bit more serious. And because I started then to go into informatics and really focus on the more serious professional enterprise part of it and not so much the get me out of jail card experience.
That's interesting. So if you became 18, so you didn't, so then you stopped working with the air pressure, right? Then so
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
no. What I wanted to say is, or wanted to ask you, so what the first programming language was Visual Basic, then Assembly, you said? Visual
Yes,
Basic and Assembly,
basic,
Visual Basic,
exactly.
Basic and Assembly. What happened
Yes.
then? And what was your next machine? I assume Amiga 500, right? No.
Yes, definitely an Amiga. That was the last machine that I bought myself, and then it was like the X286, and so the normal PCs and
Mm-hmm.
AT and so on. And
Mm-hmm.
I switched to Pascal because I loved that language. But then
Mm-hmm.
very fast after that, it was C and C++. I mean, like one of the first things I did was working on an AX3 RS6000 using Informix database in C, doing enterprise applications like for Baxter Healthcare. I remember I was doing like an ERP system in C. And
Why? During your study?
no, when I started working,
Oh,
basically.
okay. But what happened during your university time, right? So, which programming language you learned? C and C++, you said?
Yeah, C, C++, Pascal, COBOL, the classical ones that you had to learn basically to get the
Mm-hmm.
diploma. And then I really fell in love with C.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was doing C, I was working for a bank in Australia. Actually, I left.
Wow.
I worked for a consulting company in Belgium, and they sent me to Australia because I was the only one who knew about SNA, which was like a competitor of TCP/IP. And so SNA was like with AS400 and RS6000s and really
Wow.
communication. And I had developed my own application to application protocol in C. And so I had to install it at that bank. So I stayed there for 6 months. And that was around 95, 96. So that's when Java came
Mm-hmm.
out.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the
Exactly.
evening, I was playing with Java. And when I came back to Belgium, I basically got the virus of working and seeing Duke Wave in the browser and like, wow, animation in the browser.
So, how you found Java back then?
Well, I mean, I remember it was Flanagan's book, knowing
Ah, Java in a nutshell.
exactly. Yeah, that was my first book. And you could know JDK 102, you could know all the classes, all the methods,
Yeah.
you could
Yeah. Yeah.
basically know the full language.
Yeah.
And you could read the specification book of the O'Reilly editions. But no, yeah, but so then it was like manageable. You could really understand. And with applets, because I was then still working for this financial company, so we were doing retail and corporate banking using applets and using our
Now,
own.
what interests me, if you start in Australia with C, how
Yes.
you found Java. So, I mean, because there was no internet back then, or not really, right? So,
Well, 95, 96, it started, right?
okay,
So browsers were starting to
okay,
become a thing. You still had to dial in with the modem,
hmm,
but then the enthusiasm was where we saw Duke and we saw animation, and that's where like, wow, there's a
okay.
language that runs in the browser, because I think JavaScript didn't exist even back then.
No, there was a live script, I think it was
Yeah,
called.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And because of the working of working for that financial company, they were thinking of like, how can we use Java applets to do banking?
Okay.
Because it's a bit more secure than just HTML or LiveScript. And that's really where I started getting excited about the language. And very soon after, when I came back to Belgium, I basically wanted to meet again other people who are enthusiastic about it. So I started the Belgium Java user group
Wow, that
in
early. So,
97.
1997, something like this.
Yeah, in 97. Yeah,
You started the Belgium Java user group.
yeah, in 97.
So, it was one of the first, I think, right?
Yeah, it was definitely. I know there wasn't one in the Netherlands, so I was definitely before the Netherlands.
Okay.
And I was starting to. 97 was the first time I went to Java 1, and then I went like for 15 years in a row. So you really started to get networked, connected to all these developers and engineers. And I think it was in 2001 that I then started JavaPolis, because in 98 I started my own consulting company,
Hmm.
which was doing Java consultancy basically. So I
What
left
was the name of the company?
JCS.
JCS, exactly. Uh-huh.
JCS International, I changed it. And JCS could have stood for Java Consulting Services or Janssen Consulting Services, because it started
Ah.
with just me, but it rapidly grew and it doubled in size every year.
Hmm.
Until it became too big for me, which was like 35 people, and I wanted to stay a CTO and not a CEO. So I sold the company in September 2001. That's when the planes crashed.
Yeah.
When 9/11 happened, I signed the contract in the afternoon to sell the company. And in the evening, I still had to fly to Norway to do some consultancy. And the taxi driver said, like, you know what happened in New York? You shouldn't be flying. So it was like, my wife was like really scared that I was still flying that evening. So everybody knows a bit where they were at that moment.
Exactly.
And I basically had signed the agreement to sell the company. And it's in that same year that I started JavaPolis. So because of BJUG, I was doing this already for like 4 years. And so after 4 years, you just want to do more and different things. So I wanted to do a 1-day event or a 2-day event. And that's how JavaPolis basically got started.
So back to you, because you were quite technical with SNA and C. And then, the Java applets. So what you developed, or what was your idea? Why you wanted to develop, and what, right? For instance, during a study, you had a goal to develop something nice, or what were your interests back then? Or
we had like a desktop application at that financial company. So I wanted to mimic what they were doing in the browser using a Java applet. So I was doing research and development in the evening on my own, basically showing that you could do that in Java. And then when I came back, I was still able to do that for like 1 year during business hours. And because I was so passionate with the language and really networking, etc., and with the Java user group, because the Java user group really was for me the trigger. It actually was the push to go independent. Because it opened up doors and connections to people which I would normally not have had. And because of the user group, there was a contract that I was able to get for 1 year at Progress Software doing Adaptavist or something. They had like this application server that they bought from India. Adaptavist or something, I can't remember the name. And I was basically their consultant of selling that platform. It was like before J2EE. That was Java based, and it was like with the wizard and with CRUD, it created based on the domain model the screens, and it had Java at the back end. So I was helping them with that as a consultant, and they wanted to have more and more people to support them. So I just hired more and more people within the company. Then they did Sonic MQ as well, Progress Software. I did a bit of JMS for them, consultancy. I remember one highlight for me was at CERN, where I was helping to integrate Sonic MQ in CERN to actually listen to the temperature and so on of all the hardware. And that was a really nice project, to be honest. So you basically roll into it, and if you're really passionate about these things as you are as well, one opportunity after the other comes by. And because I'm not afraid of also communicating and talking and standing in front of crowds and learn and teaching, etc., and sharing your knowledge, it really helps to market also what you're doing as a business. And that was a success for both JCS at that time and then JavaPolis afterwards.
I didn't know that you were actually an enterprise developer. No, I suspected you are some technical Java guy, but no idea that you also are an enterprise developer. Regarding Java user group, was a Java user group a thing back then? Because I know the Java user group is the JAG is an official name, or was it your invention? So you started.
No, it was definitely not my invention. There were definitely already Java user groups at that time.
Okay.
But BJUG was definitely founded by me, and then I rapidly, got some other people who were enthusiastic people who worked at Sun Microsystems at that time as well, who joined me, and it was really a team effort at that time. But I was always the one, handling the flag, so to speak. But then, like JavaPolis was definitely an initiative I did because financially there had to be, some money had to be put on the table. And luckily, when I sold the company, I was more or less financially independent, so I could actually do that risk. Because the first 3 years of JavaPolis, we didn't make any money. We lost money, basically. So luckily, with that sell, I was able to cover, the learning curve, what it takes if you run a conference like that.
There were only 3 years of JavaPolis?
No, it took 3 years to be break even. JavaPolis, and then in 2008, I had to rebrand it to Devoxx.
Yeah. One question regarding JavaPolis: was your idea with the name, or?
No, it was again also I had a program committee and a steering committee, and so in the steering committee we had different people who are passionate about Java who came up, and the thing was it was always organized in Kinepolis, which is the cinema complex. So it's Java and Kinepolis, so JavaPolis. That was
Okay.
a very easy one to come up with, but I did not originally come up with that name. I think it was the marketing company who I had hired. Because I still had a lockup period during the cell, so I still had to stay for like 3 or 4 years. So I was doing JavaPolis in the evening and the weekends, but I still had a day job as a consultant during the week. But then after my lockup period, I basically stopped with the marketing company, and then I asked my wife to join and do the administration, and I could do this full time instead of in the weekends and in the evening.
Okay. And that's interesting. And what happened, that you had to rename JavaPolis to Devoxx?
Yeah.
How it happened?
Yeah,
interesting.
So JavaPolis already existed like 6-7 years, and it became really a well-known Java conference in Europe. And because of that, we were starting to appear above the, how do you call that, the line where people are seeing what's happening also outside of Europe.
Yeah.
And so I think we got attention from Sun Microsystems, from the people in the US. And then, of course, they have the brands Java, which they have to protect. And so it is obvious in a way. I fully understand that they contacted me and said, like, okay, you have to either rebrand it, rename it, or you can sign an agreement with us. So you can still continue with JavaPolis, but the agreement wasn't really that fair. I mean, like one of the things which they asked was like that they would always have a keynote. And, for me, content is king. I did not want to sacrifice the content because of that. So I said, like, no, that's for me a breaking point. And then I remember one thing. They said, well, we can hire you. You just join Sun Microsystems, and as an employee, you can use it. And so, well, I'm not really interested in joining Sun Microsystems at that time. So I contacted the marketing company, and they came with the new name was Javoxx. That was the name, Javoxx. And with 2 X's, so it was unique, because I wanted a name that if you put it in Google, it would give 0 search results.
Yeah.
And so that's why they added the extra X. That was really unique. And so I remember that we announced it on Wednesday. JavaPolis rebranded to Javoxx. And the same day in the evening, I got another email from the lawyer saying, like, no, Javoxx is not acceptable because it's still 3 letters from Java. So it's JAV, which is not allowed. And then we discussed that in the program team and in the steering team of JavaPolis. And then I remember Robin Mulkers, who used to work or still works at IBM. He came with the idea, let's do Devoxx then. The Vox is voice, developers, or the voice of developers. And basically, after one day, we rebranded it again to Devoxx.
Just a great name, actually, right?
It is a great name. It is really a good name. But I had really sleepless nights because of that, because I had no idea if it would impact, the audience and the interest in the events, because rebranding, it can go both ways, in my opinion. But luckily, it did not have any impact. On the contrary, I think it really detached us more from Java. And over the years, we were able to rebrand it from the Java Community Conference to the Developer Community Conference, which is what it is today. It's much broader now. And the JVM is still like the red line, but it's not pure Java anymore.
I like the JavaPolis better, not so because of Java, but the Polis part is like some, more dreamy somehow, you can, almost science fiction. And Devoxx is more technical name, I would say, right? So Devoxx, this is like Devoxx is serious conference, and JavaPolis is more like dreamers, something science fiction. So this is why I like it a little bit better, but I don't know, you cannot do this.
Well,
but
it was better if it happened at Kinepolis, but now because of the franchise, we have Devoxxes all over the place. So JavaPolis would happen in Paris. It would not have this link with Kinepolis, so it would break a bit the meaning.
You also got the idea to record all the Java user groups, I remember, right? So you did something like a screencast sharing service, I remember. And it was very successful because I was invited to a lot of Java user group and everyone, submitted the content to you, I remember.
Yeah, true. So that was back in the time when, well, I first wanted to record the talks because you spent like 6 months preparing for this event. And in, after 2, 3 or 5 days, all the content is gone. And all that effort is disappeared. So I really wanted to record the talks. And my inspiration came really from Java 1. I mean, Java 1 recorded, I don't know if you still remember, but they even had, I think, cassettes where they recorded the audio on cassettes and then CDs. And so that inspired me to do something similar. And so in the early days, before I published it online, I had developed a Flash application with a DVD, which was basically, I spent like 4 months post-editing the talks. I did this myself, right till, it was like a mnemonic work. Like I took like 8 hours for a 1 hour talk to just edit it and find the right times and so on. And so while you're doing that, you think like, man, there must be better ways to do it. And so, so first we distributed DVDs using Flash. And then I started looking at YouTube, which was coming up. But in YouTube, you could only upload until 10 minutes. But the talks were 1 hour. So I decided very rapidly to build my own application. And I started with Confluence, which was from Atlassian, where I was embedding the video and the slides separately. And then I found a guy who was like Benjamin Dobler from Germany, who's like a wizard in Flash. And then Flex came out from Adobe. And so we decided to start our own product called Parleys.
Exactly.
And Parleys was like, I did the server side, Ben did the client side in the beginning. Then I hired a few extra people like Hart and Jo, who joined me. And yeah, we were doing really crazy things. He was like doing automatic recognition when the slide changes. So we were post-processing talks automatically based on pattern recognition of the slides and the recorded video and lots of fun until, of course, YouTube started to add more and more freedom in the duration of videos. And at that time, all of a sudden, they even dropped it. So you could just post videos unlimited. And it was clear that, I was fighting with a small team and a small startup.
When was it, Parleys? So it was...
I think it was 2008, right? I think I stopped in 2015, and I started in 2011 or something like that. Even Jo, he did like a JavaFX version of that. And because of that, it was so nice that I even did the technical keynote at Java 1.
Exactly.
Showing it. So we were really like having lots of fun, but we were having too much fun and not so much focused as always on the business.
Yeah.
We were just having, coding fun and playing with technology and then using it for Devoxx, but not so much looking at other conferences and trying to make a commercial success out of it. So
it was the fun way, right? So they also had lots of fun. I would say, but it's important. I think without the fun, you wouldn't be as successful as you are. Because, just chasing the business. You got free marketing out of that. Because what I remember, I was everywhere, and every Java user group, they recorded everything and uploaded to you. So you were the content king, and without the fun, it wouldn't happen. If you started, with contracts or whatever, no one will use it. And what I also remember, you use Glassfish, right, in the back end.
Yes.
At least we had a talk about that. So it's like,
yes.
Yeah, exactly. So this was also interesting. So it's okay. It's interesting that you're using Glassfish because I had no idea that you are an enterprise developer, actually.
Yeah. Well, I think the mistake we did was that we should have turned it into an e-learning platform. And then it would have really thrived. And then, of course, I would have had to get some venture capital and maybe move to the US to be really successful. But that was the missing opportunity because there were definitely other copycats who were going in that direction. And I remember they were contacting me, etc. And they were really going, no, e-learning is the way to go. But for me, it was in function for Devoxx. And so the e-learning wasn't really a right fit. But that's afterwards, it's easy to say what I should have changed. But that was a missed opportunity.
And Parleys, or what's the name? So how you came up with the name?
So Parleys, well, first of all, you had to find a free domain name with the .com, which was still a challenge. And Parleys is also a way for two enemies to come to a truce.
Yeah.
So it was a nice way to okay, let's have a parley.
Okay.
And it was also a bit parler, which is the French word to speak.
Okay.
So it was I thought it was a good name to use. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What's also interesting is, what I remember, you started with e-learning platform because you asked me whether I have a course, and I submitted or I recorded.
It was at the end. It was at the end of Parleys.
Okay.
So we were looking how can we create revenue, because I had 3-4 people working in Parleys. Mm-hmm. So I had to make sure I could pay their salary. And at a certain time, it was basically Devoxx subsidizing that initiative. Mm-hmm. But that couldn't continue. It had to be self-sustained at a certain time. So we actually, our last pivot was to go to e-learning. Mm-hmm. And then, yes, we actually offered courses. And you were one of them. I know Heinz Boots had courses on it and so on. But the problem we had in Belgium was the micropayments. Having micropayments, we had courses which were 20 euros, but it costs 5 to 6 euros just from an accountancy point of view to get that in the books. Mm-hmm. And so I was working with Ernst & Young for the accountancy, and it was really difficult to get that working. The margin was so minimal that it was unable to be self-sustained.
I don't know. I had the course, or I recorded the course, but I had no time. So I recorded the entire course. It was about Java very quickly. And I uploaded it to Parleys, and I crashed your servers, I think, because I had no time. So I uploaded everything, and then I had a call with the developers. They're not that fast, you have to be slow. So, okay, so this was a great time. So, and then it was actually quite successful, I can remember, but it was 2015 or something like this. Yeah. And then I asked you afterwards, okay, I will just, take the course from you, and I will upload, I think, to YouTube or Vimeo. So yeah, sure, no problem, because we're shutting down on this what happened back then, right? So and you always had fun. So I always ask myself, why you are doing this, and it turns out because you wanted to have fun, right?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I had my first midlife crisis when I sold my first company, and it was I was 32 years old, and I was okay, either I go full-time golfing, which it's not a sport I like, or I just have fun with technology, and this is really what I like to do. I mean.
Yeah, golfing is terrible, so it's a good choice.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's in my DNA, right? I mean, if you're 16 and already playing with BASIC and assembly, it's clear that this is what you love to do, and I still love doing this, and it's something I don't have to do. I mean, I could really stop if I want, but it's so much fun. It's so much fun, and definitely also then the community aspect and touching so many people's souls and lives, because. I do think I remember, I mean, Devoxx, it allows people to be connected because you meet in person, and it's basically a way to make a difference, and that's what I love doing, of course.
Actually, this year was the first time after the pandemic and some in-person conferences, and I just listened to some speakers, and they said, I would really like to go Devoxx this year. So do you have a special, a special, how to call it, position, I would say. Everyone likes Devoxx. This is, and Devoxx Belgium is I would say back then was Java 1, I would say, right? Java
Absolutely.
1 was the conference. And
yes.
Now I think, you took the place of Java 1, I would say. So Devoxx Belgium is, what I hear, among attendees and speakers, everyone likes Devoxx Belgium. What's unique was in Java 1, I would say at some time, because you also joined Java 1. Java 1 was very special, right?
Absolutely.
I don't know why, but it was a magical place, and the first Java 1s, it was unbeatable.
Absolutely.
And this was, I don't know why, actually, right? So why it was...
I mean, all the engineers were there, San Francisco,
Yeah.
I mean... Sun Microsystems at that time did a great job of organizing a beautiful events with lots of networking, great content. And it's a shame, I mean, that there isn't a Java 1 anymore, because, I mean, Devoxx should not be the premier Java conference. It should be Java 1. It should come from Oracle. I mean, Oracle should have a premier Java conference because they are the steward of Java. I mean, Devoxx is basically Plan B, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is what it is. I'm more than happy, of course, to do this, but it does have an impact because you definitely see, like last year. I mean, we sold out in 5 minutes. In
Yeah.
5 minutes, which is it's good in one way, but it's really bad on the other because a lot of people are just don't have the time to buy a ticket because it's just gone in minutes, which I understand it's a luxury position to be in, but I would prefer it takes a bit longer so at least people have enough time to buy a ticket. And that's why I think the franchise model helps, because if you can't scale vertically, I'm basically scaling horizontally over different cities and countries. So at least you can still go to a Devoxx even if it's not in Antwerp and in the cinema complex.
You're absolutely right. Um, the you said that midlife crisis because you sold your company. So why you stick with Java? So you could actually do whatever you liked, right? So you still like Java, or what's your relation to Java?
To be honest, these days, the last year, I've been doing more Python than Java.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. And it's obvious for obvious reasons. I mean, the whole large language models and ChatGPT, etc., all the excitement and for the moment, the innovation is happening within the Python sphere. So what happens is that once Devoxx Belgium is finished, I have like 4 months of downtime because I don't have to do anything. So I'm doing research and development again, and I'm playing with new technologies and trying out new things, and also looking at like the CFP, how can I improve it with the new technologies which are joined. And that's where, like last year, already in November, when ChatGPT was recently released, I was already playing with Python and have like a fast API where I could have the Python code talk to the large language models and then see how I could integrate it with the CFP using REST, etc. And, like these days, many years ago, Spring Framework and J2E were like the two hot platforms. But now in Python, it's langchain, and langchain is like this growing. It's very similar to Spring Framework. They existed like for 6 months, and they got $10 million investment, which also Spring Framework had the same pattern. And the innovation which happens there, and it's basically like a framework on top of multiple large language models, so you can really like glue them together, and it's really, really exciting stuff. So that's where Python, especially once you know a few languages, the concepts are very similar, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's sure I will not be an expert in it, but now with ChatGPT, you have an expert assistant which can help you if you don't understand the code. And so, yeah, I'm using that a lot now. What's beautiful to see is now with LangChain, there are now Java versions happening as well. So there are Java initiatives where it's called LangChain for Java or 4J. So the Java ecosystem is picking up on the innovation as well and starting to embrace it. Microsoft is also coming out with a microkernel, which is also
semantic kernel, right?
Yeah, semantic kernel, exactly. So you do see that it's always like this, right? There's always a bit of a catch up, which takes a bit of time. But yeah, it's really exciting times. I mean, seriously, I would say every quarter I could start a new company for sure.
Yeah.
And there's so many, every 18 months, it's a Control-Alt-Delete because there's new opportunities every 18 months because there's basically a new wave coming. So I always have to limit myself a bit because I would, I want to do it a bit slower, but there's so many opportunities out there. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah. Regarding Python, so I also had thoughts with all the language models and machine learning. And I don't know whether you're aware of Tornado VM. You heard about that? Tornado VM?
No.
Very interesting project. You have to look it up and invite them to Devoxx, of course. Tornado VM, what they are doing, this is basically they're using GraalVM and they're able to run Java on GPUs, or even accelerated Java. And the idea is to do data science with Java again, because Java is very fast, and they have already some success with accelerated Spark, Apache Spark, and they did do serious projects, and they also work now with the deep nets with Soran. You know Soran for sure, with the deep nets machine learning framework. So I would say, and what I also noticed that the data scientists, they don't like Python a lot. I would say some they just use Python because they have to, because it's okay. We are not software engineers, so we just know glue stuff together. And the others, for instance, for performance reasons, they use Go or whatever, and they don't care about Python. So I would say there's actually a huge opportunity for Java, just to do the same with pure Java, and save some energy. The problem there is, I don't know whether it's European law or German law, next year large companies will have to show CO2 footprint, and maybe the energy efficiency of Java, and this is actually great, is number 5 or 4 after C, C++, ADA, and Python is like 35 times worse.
Yes,
so what's I think what people don't see is the opportunity to use Java, and combine Java in data science with things we already have.
Yeah.
And this is why I don't spend too much time learning new languages, because for me, as you said, it's a little bit waste of time, because I know Java well enough, and you can do with Java whatever you like. If I would learn, different language, I would lose time, to knowing all, not about the language. It's more knowing about the problems, the errors you get with Java. We already know what happens, right? And if I would learn Rust or whatever and just learn, if I will practice that, then I would lose some time with just, knowing that, I don't know, what happens if I run it on ARM or Intel and how it behaves in Docker or whatever. In Java, I already know what to expect, right?
Yeah.
So I think this could be also a hot topic, right? So data science with Java, with Tornado VM, with deep nets ideas. So it could be an interesting topic for Devoxx even.
Absolutely. I'm already seeing like the green and energy saving talks appear in the CFP as well. So it's definitely starting to get some traction. And you're fully right. I mean, Python is definitely not the most performant language, but it's where the excitement was definitely a year ago. Now it's already shifting again, because again, Java is catching up for sure. But yeah, I'll definitely have a look at the Tornado VM, see if I can reach out to them.
Juan Montero, I think, is the committer from Tornado VM. And I had some chats at conference with data scientists and asked them, about Python, and the response was often I got, we don't care about the language. This is what we get, to run the model. We get the data back and we are happy. So they don't spend time, about data structures, whatever. They just very pragmatic about that.
Yeah.
And that's actually interesting. So
the beauty what's happening there as well is that a lot of these large language models are now appearing with a REST interface in front of it. So you can basically interact with it with any language as long as it talks HTTP. So yeah, that's at least a good.
A native integration would be interesting, but to my understanding is even Python talks via REST, right? So with the models. So it would be interesting, to pick OpenAI model and run it locally and see whether we can interact directly with it without the HTTP, interaction.
So there's this guy from Bulgaria who's doing a C++ migration of all these models. Exactly. And he's running it on iPhone. And now he actually did, I tweeted it this afternoon, he's able to spread the load of the inference on Raspberry Pis. So you can have a cluster of different Raspberry Pis and have like a really big large language model do inference on your cluster in C++. So once we have Valhalla or these JNI new branded JNI interfaces, you could totally do that with Java.
Even more interesting. I mean, the C++ is one thing, but C++ is close to Java, so it would be interesting, to translate it to Java. Let's say to not beautiful Java, but just good enough. As you remember at the beginning, there were lots of C to Java translators which produced crap code, but it worked. And then, do some experiments on GraalVM, for instance, right? It would be interesting to run, the Java code on GraalVM, and then you can combine it with other languages. Then you could have, high-performant Python, which calls Java code, and offer to data scientists and say, look, this is like, are you aware of the Mojo project? The Python, which is by Chris Lattner, which is an accelerated Python right now. So we have it on GraalVM. So I would say, It's your job actually to push the ideas because I'm just developer, no? But you can go, on stage and talk about it, keynote.
Absolutely, and I do that on regular basis. I mean, we did like last year at the Devoxx Belgium keynote. We had one of the first AI generated animations based on different themes that I wanted to highlight. And it was a guy that I found in Australia who was really pushing the envelope on AI art. And I think a lot of people saw that for the first time at Devoxx Belgium, where we had like a 3-minute video generated completely with AI. Now it's already, everybody knows about it. But
what I think, what you're saying is marketing. But if you explain to developers, look, there is a guy in Bulgaria who translates, the models to C++. We could translate this, to Java and run it on Graal, see what happens. So, in this direction and see, maybe with students, maybe some contributions happens because for me, it seems like doable. The problem is our time, right? I cannot just go to vacation to say my clients, hey, look, I'm just translating my GPT to Java. They will say I'm crazy. But, but we need someone who is passionate, a student, and just does that, right?
Yeah, but that's the beauty again about an event like Devoxx and other IT conferences is that, the Graal people will be there. So you can just talk with Alina or her colleagues and basically start brainstorming. And what happens is that sometimes you have lunch and you start pitching that idea, and then all of a sudden there's a movement. They say, okay, let's do an open source project. And that's how things happen. And that's why I'm saying like connecting the dots. Yeah. I know who's doing what. And sometimes I really take a guy and say, okay, you need to come with me and I need to introduce you to him. Yeah. I remember one time, Romain Guy, he came to me and he said, Stefan, can you introduce me to Joshua Bloch? He's sitting over there. I said, sure. So I took Romain Guy and said, hey, Josh Bloch, this is Romain Guy. You need to talk to this guy. He's from France, but he's really good in graphics. And just that introduction resulted in him joining Google, and now he's still working in the Android team.
Yeah, he's pretty high actually on the Android team right now.
Yeah, together with Chet Haas as well, and so on. So.
But Romain Guy did the swing, how it is called? Yes. The swing hacking show at JavaOne. Yes. How is an extreme swing makeover, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. This was everyone said swing is terrible, and he just created a stellar apps with swing, which was incredible.
Yeah, and I think it was together with Chet Haas as well.
Yeah, exactly.
They both were working at Sun Microsystems at that time, but they wanted to join the Android team. So that's also the beauty of like 3,000 plus people, in one location in the evening, drinking beer and having ideas and basically.
You remember JavaOne and Rich Green, the guy?
Yeah. Yes.
This is what I meant, about your job. What Rich Green always did is like, is the first 5 minutes is like, I read a newspaper about this. And what I found, there's like broadband going on in San Francisco. Therefore, Java combined with the backend, we can achieve that. And this is what you could do, right? To say, look, everyone is looking at Python, but there is nothing special in Python. We can do this with Java, with C, mentioning the guy from Bulgaria, Tornado VM, just to point the ideas. Because I think from the attendee perspective, if you go to Graal VM talk, it is very technical and very special. Then you go maybe to a machine learning talk, which is complete different topic. And I think it is hard to find the connection. Yeah, this is obvious maybe if we're talking right now, but I think if you would join the conference, you wouldn't find the connection between Graal VM, Python, machine learning, or whatever, right?
Yeah, but I already do that in a way implicitly by inviting people that I really find interesting what they're doing. Like, for example, there's a Chinese guy who did a Spring Boot ChatGPT library. And so very fresh, really beautifully designed. You really saw that he's an expert. And so, I'm very blunt. I just ping him. I start talking to him and say, you should come to Devoxx and you should talk and so on. And unfortunately, he's unable because he just switched jobs in a Chinese company. So he's unable to come. But I didn't tweet about it so people know it. But I have a few other, like tomorrow I'm talking to another guy where he's basically the founder of langchain 4J. And so I'm like pushing like, okay, you guys need to be present there because people need to know about your project. So that's the first thing, at least have a platform where they can speak about exciting new initiatives. That's the first thing. And once they're there in Antwerp or in any other Devoxx or IT conferences in general, you can start introducing the right people and try to see if there's some synergies that can happen out of that. And I don't always have to be the enabler because a lot of things happen automatically, right?
No, but you can speak well, can just tell it on the keynote, right? So I'm just,
Sure.
like
Absolutely.
this
Absolutely.
what I thought about it. I know the enabler that you can, you can coordinate the people or inspire people, but if you just, like, show the path. This is what I'm a little bit missing. So Java 1, there was the sun, which said, okay, this and this is possible. What of dreams? And now it is almost lost. Everything is possible, but it's sometimes hard, to find what we should do, right? In which direction should we go? This is the...
Yeah, but there's of course a different dynamic. With Java 1, you had an enterprise company behind it with political and strategical goals that they wanted to, an agenda that they want to communicate, of course, as well, right? With Devoxx, I don't really have any specific goals. I want to share the knowledge and the excitement and make sure that we have a good educational learning platform and a networking environment. But I don't have any goals for products,
Yeah, but for instance, agenda could be, right, machine learning with Java.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
So this is like for this year, and next year you pick another agenda. So you could do as if you were, some microsystem or enterprise company, and your agenda would be for this year, ChatGPT or langchain with Java. What we can do with it, like some, this could be interesting. So a question regarding Python. So from Java to Python, was it hard for you? So you enjoyed everything, or what you hated the most in Python? Or
well, the first thing I hated was a bit the environment, the dependencies. So you have like Maven and Gradle. You have something almost similar where you can create a requirements file, and there you can say, okay, I need these libraries, and these are the versions of these libraries. And then you install it. And what I didn't know is that it installs it in your shell on your computer, but you really have to create a virtual environment first. So that was like a first learning experience. I wasn't aware of Conda and these type of things where you can create a virtual environment, like a Docker instance, for example, where it's nicely contained. So that was a bit of a learning curve. But once because the thing is that I had clear goals in mind. So one of the goals that I wanted to do was semantic analysis and semantic similarity of talks. So based on the semantic meaning, I wanted to show other talks which had the same content and have the ability to do semantic search. And so that was my goal. So I do whatever is needed to achieve that goal. And so I will not sleep and just go, really non-stop to achieve that goal. So whatever it takes. If I have to read books, if I have to do research, if I have to follow courses or whatever. And so so I'm laser focused. And then, and of course the end result is not always the most beautiful code because you're learning while you're doing this. So a lot of times I revisit it and I rewrite it because you learn new things. And even
how much code was it?
So while I had that finished very rapidly, like in a small week or so, I had something working. But then I saw like this opportunity, and I started doing other things. And then I started with Devoxx Insights, where I wanted to do the transcripts of the talk and create summaries of the talks, and then you could do Q&A, etc. And before you know it, it is becoming a substantial project.
Yes. So you used the OpenAI Whisperer, or what do you use for that?
No, so there's a Python library which allows you to download the transcript from YouTube. So you just give it the YouTube URL, it downloads the transcript, and then you basically create chunks of text, because at that time the context was 4K. You could have maximum 4K chunks of text. Now it's already 32K, or if you use Claude, it's 100,000 tokens that you currently have. So it's really going very fast. So I had to create chunks of the transcript, then you summarize the different chunks, and then you convert it in Word embeddings, and then you put the Word embeddings in a vector database. And that was the whole learning experiment, which I actually did a talk about at Devoxx France and Devoxx UK, where I wanted to share the experience.
Cool.
But also trying to push, like, how far can you push ChatGPT? Like, can you use ChatGPT to schedule 200 talks and have the best schedule? for example. Those are things I tried out. And so just giving the talks, etc., it was able to create a perfect schedule for one day using certain constraints. So like the constraints are obviously like if you have 2 talks, you can't do 2 talks at the same time.
Yeah.
But other constraints were, for example, you have tracks and you don't want to have the same track at the same time. It was able to do that pure in text for one day, but for 5 days with 220 speakers, that was impossible. So the way I did it was actually I asked ChatGPT to create a Python application which would do the planning for me.
Okay.
And that worked. That was actually possible. So it could produce a Python code with whatever library. It chose a Google library, but it could have also done Optaplanner, which is what we use today, where it could have generated a Java application using Optaplanner to create a schedule using that application. So it's like, basically experimenting and seeing what's possible, but again, in function of Devoxx.
Yeah.
I
think you are one of the, how to call it, one of the midlife crisis guys who learns the most worldwide, right? Instead of playing golf, you are constantly learning, right? For years, which is...
But having fun with technology, I would say.
Yeah, learning, right? Having fun, but learning. So as you said, it is a learning on steroids, I would say, what you're doing.
Yeah, probably. Definitely learning, that's for sure. But because, I always said to myself, like, if Devoxx, if it would just be a copy and paste every year and there's no excitement for me anymore, I would stop doing it.
Exactly.
So there has to be excitement. I have to feel that there's a difference that we can make, but also that we can learn, and not just in Java, but very broad. And so that keeps me going.
What I remember, I think it was last year, I was at the Voxx Romania. I gave a keynote, and the host of the show, nice guy, I forgot his name.
Alex.
He say, he lost his voice or something, and he say, hey, it doesn't work because Stefan's still deploying, this app right now. So during the keynote, you deployed, the entire app new, and he was cursing, say, Adam, keep going, but I don't know how long because Stefan is, deploying again. You remember this?
No, was it the virtual one on Rocket?
Yeah, virtual one.
Yeah,
I did it with a keynote. There was Alex and his wife, and we had lots of fun. And the attendees, and Alex said, I don't know what's going on because Stefan is deploying again, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, during the pandemic, I was like bored. The first year was like, wow, a sabbatical, but very fast you were just bored because you couldn't travel, etc. So Mark Hazel and I decided, okay, let's build an e-platform so we can still run our own conferences. So together with Celestino, we were basically building an Angular application with Spring Boot and then also running it on Cloud Run, etc., using Graal to have the native app and so on. And we were just working on it nonstop and having fun again, but also the possibility to have then still virtual events using our own platform. And I do remember that there were still some issues during.
And Alex was cursing, so this was actually fun. I said, okay, greeting to Stefan during the keynote. Maybe
it does not always go well. There's always bugs, right? Nobody is perfect.
So so you are basically learning and running Devoxx, right? This is your job right now, your focus.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Devoxx, running Devoxx Belgium is not a full-time job. That's the beauty of it. So it takes, we start 9 months before the event begins, but it basically ramps up, right? So the last 2 months, especially the last month, is really hectic. But after that, you have the Devoxx blues, we call that. So you fall in a black hole, so to speak, and then 4 months there's nothing. And so that's where I can basically refresh and try to do a bit of new things and R&D, etc. And then after 4 months again, you gradually start, or 3 months, you gradually start again preparing. But the beauty is it's not a full-time job, so I can still develop on the CFP, for example. I work daily on the CFP. I always try to make it better and upgrade it to the newest versions, etc. And try to introduce new things like the whole ChatGPT. Like now we have like this automatic summaries, but now I also introduced blind reviews. So we have like a concept called community reviewers. And I introduced a blind review. So I give the abstract and the bio of the speaker to ChatGPT, and I say like, hey, anonymize it. So they don't know who's actually presenting this talk, because I wanted to see how people will rate the talks without knowing the name of the person.
Okay.
But they do see the bio, but it's anonymized. So it doesn't say anything of the company, etc. And so these are like all types of experiments and things like the tags. So a speaker can enter a tag. Well, I'm now using ChatGPT to create keywords out of the abstract. So it automatically gives you the keywords instead of the tags. So I'm now doing both, but next year I will drop the tags and the keywords will be generated out of the abstract. But also based on the semantic meaning, it will automatically link it to a certain track. So you don't have to select the track anymore. It will be selected for you based on the content that you submit. And things like that. So it's like, and like other things I did was like with face recognition. Like we have a photographer taking thousands of pictures. So what I'm doing is that I'm using face recognition to give you all the pictures from the show based on your Twitter avatar.
Cool.
And things like that. So it's like, again, having fun with technology, having then talks about it, and giving an added value to the whole experience.
Okay, now a serious topic. How do you think ChatGPT will affect, the society and developers? Or technologies like ChatGPT. ChatGPT doesn't matter. So I would say,
Yeah, large language models in general, it's in one side frightening, and on the other side also exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, I work at home on my own. I don't really have colleagues. That's why I need to go to conferences as well to at least get my kick. But I use ChatGPT on a daily basis as an expert assistant who reviews my talk, who validates certain architectural choices, etc. So from that point of view, it's like universal education for anybody who has a computer and internet, because everybody can now really learn anything using this assistant.
Yeah.
So I think that's a positive thing. But of course, it's obvious as developers, it's like, where will it stop? I mean, I can already now upload my projects using the latest code interpreter in ChatGPT, and then people are starting to become afraid, like, is there still a future for developers? I mean, I'm of course on Reddit, and there's like young people, teenagers who are saying like, should I still follow, computer science? Because maybe in 10 years time, who knows what's going to happen. Yeah. So that's, of course, there's this dual thing. That's like, on one side, I'm much more productive, because I give my code to ChatGPT and I say like, how can I improve it? And I learn while it gives new approaches to algorithms or whatever. And so I'm being more productive for sure, because I now have this expert assistant. But where will this end? If this will be an exponential growth, maybe just the business analyst will have a job where they basically say, this is a system, and you explain the system how you need it, and it might generate it maybe in 10 or 20 years time. I don't know. So that's the frightening part. It's like we're like this frog in this boil where they are heating up the water, and the frog doesn't know that it's getting boiled, so to speak.
Yeah. With the boiling, I think this doesn't. I read.
No, I know it's fake. It's not
fake,
real.
It doesn't work. Yeah, of course. But what I think, even if the business analyst would manage, to generate one system, I think the challenge will be still have, to have three systems which communicate with each other, or have the insight that actually from the three systems you can create one system. So I think with all the AI, you are faster, but the faster you are, the complex system you will build, and the more
maybe it will create a system that we don't even understand.
Yeah, exactly. So you will have, if you need to understand something, you need to be an expert, in order to use the AI well. This is my feeling, because right now, if you write, for instance, Java code, CRUD, right? So you know exactly what to do. So you could say, okay, then ChatGPT generate, right? But if you need an algorithm, then you could take, ChatGPT to generate the Java code. But if you look at the Java code, say, this is what I don't understand, it's a good idea. So maybe it is a good idea to rewrite the Java code to make it simpler, take inspiration, because if you just use ChatGPT, then we don't need Java code anymore. You can just generate, bytecode, and I say, I don't care, because I could regenerate it again, because this is complete different level. So yeah.
You remember, or like the translation, where languages translation, and what they used AI as well, and the AI came with its own language to actually represent different spoken languages. So it could be, again, in X amount of time, that it just creates zeros and ones, so to speak.
Exactly.
And it does what you have described. But we will need to describe it in much more detail so it knows exactly how to implement it or how to generate it.
And this is a full circle, right? This will be interesting, how far we can go, because if you will just generate, working software, it will also have to generate diagrams or something that we understand whether this thing is actually doing which it's supposed to do, because this could be even misunderstanding, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we are not perfect creatures, even if ChatGPT is going to be perfect. If I tell create a banking system for me, whatever, maybe I misspell something and it will generate lots of code which does the wrong thing. So it will have to generate some representation, testing or whatever, which has to be understood. So for me, I would say the complexity will be higher, and actually the requirements to software developers are higher than before, because right now it's enough to build CRUD and getters and setters, and afterwards you will have really to know what the impact is of such a system, right?
Yeah, I mean, it will take time. I don't think we will be out of a job.
You remember MDA 2000 model-driven architecture? So like 2004, I was at conferences from object management group. There were companies who claimed, we don't need developers anymore because they can generate everything from UML. I say I'm a little bit skeptical, but who knows, right? But it was exactly the same problem. Not exactly the same problem, but similar problem, because you had diagrams, and it was a lot. You could draw the diagrams, but you were faster with code. Similar problem. I had a chat with a manager actually, was offshoring and outsourcing, right? It is a kind of a ChatGPT, because what the companies did, they wrote the requirements and they say build a system, right? And this was there was not like artificial intelligence; it was just intelligence offshore, and it also took a long time, lots of iterations to communicate with the developers in order to tell exactly what they have to do. And with ChatGPT, the iterations are shorter, but the problem is the same.
Yeah. It's definitely true. So I definitely think describing a system will be more important. And over time, who knows? I mean, developers will just have to play a different role, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. You have to use the AI, and how far, nobody knows, right?
No, we don't.
Question regarding Devoxx. What is your ultimate goal now? I mean, what would be the perfect, next year? So let's say you could do, whatever, like, what you would like to achieve with Devoxx, with Java, with whatever?
That's a difficult question. For me, it's to find interesting speakers and also new speakers, because the problem, what I'm seeing for sure, is that it's a traveling circus in regards to speakers.
It's not now I knew, because I didn't attend a lot of conferences the last 3 years. So it's nothing. Is it the same speakers again?
Well, so I try to go to all the Devoxxes, which we have 6 or 7, and I try to go to a few Fox days as well. And what you're just seeing is that these speakers, they go from one event to the other, a lot of them, right? Yeah. So that's why I call it a traveling circus. Yeah. And so one of my aims is try to break that and not always invite the same speakers and try to find new rockstar speakers or new angles. Mm-hmm. That's why the Python part is also interesting, and the AI part, because we can have an influx of new speakers that we didn't know about. And so that's definitely always an aim, is try to find at least some new talents that can speak. But also make sure that I'm on the wave of the innovation. So I always want to make sure that at least Devoxx covers the new innovative things, because that's why people, I think, definitely one of the reasons that they come to this event, or why it's so successful, I assume, is because of the content. I mean, the content is still, for me, the most important thing. And so me going to all the other Devoxxes as a tourist is really trying to find new speakers and new topics that I can then invite to Belgium. So the other Devoxxes is, for me, basically a ground to find new talent as well.
Then I would tell it Alex, that they are misusing Vox Romania to make, Vox Belgium better.
Well, it's mutual beneficial, right? Because it's definitely mutual beneficial. Because I try to be as transparent as well. Like when people rate the talks, I try to publish it, and so if they see the top 10 or the top 100,
just kidding, of course.
Sure, I know, but it works in both ways for sure.
Mm-hmm. What's unique, actually? that your goal is fun, and the other conferences or some of the conferences, their goal is to be success. They have another other agenda. They are recruiters, or they are they behind the scenes, or a company is driving. And you, it seems like you have no agenda. You just wanted to learn and have fun, and you have fun learning. So this is why you are competitionless, right? There is no one who can compete with you unless they also have fun, right? So I mean, this is like almost sport, yeah. For you, Devoxx is almost like a sport event, right? For you, so okay, I make it better, and then is the competition. Then we have 4 months off. There's the blues, and then I learn, and there is the next one, and the next one has to be better than the previous one, right? This is the idea.
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I like that.
But it has to be successful as well, of course,
sure.
right? It needs to be at least break even, and that's a bit what we're trying to find with the franchise as well. Is that find the right mindset of people who want to organize a Voxx Days or a Devoxx as well. And if you look at all the different, like Alex and Andra, they're a couple, so they're married to each other, and they're basically me and my wife, but 30 years younger. Mm-hmm. They're exactly the same. Alex is the geek, and Andra, she's a lawyer. She's very strict admin, and have the same relationship like with me and my wife. And so it's that type of passion, but also dynamic and mindset that I'm trying to find also for the other Devoxxes and Voxx Days. So if a guy comes to me and said, I want to run a Voxx Day, I have an interview with him or her, and I try to see if they have that type of mindset.
Okay.
If it's a pure company which says, no, we're just doing this for marketing and it's sales, etc., then it's like, okay, I'm not interested. And I've really turned down because I'm not searching for other events. They come to me saying like, hey, can we be a Voxx Days, or could we turn it into a Devoxx?
Yeah. One thing which was a little bit pity, it was, I think his name is Greg in Poland. He runs the Devoxx Poland. And he had a conference before 33 degrees.
Okay.
And this was a great name. And he made, he revamped the 33 degrees, converted into Devoxx Poland, Krakow.
Yeah.
And I said, this is a pity, because, 33 degrees is a beautiful name. And now you're running a Devoxx, 20 other Devoxxes. So I would say with all the Devoxx all over the place, there's just the Devoxx name. So there's a little bit, pity, because before that, there are lots of conferences with unique names. But it's the branding of but 33 degrees. The name was great. Yeah. I like the name, just, it's like 1001 crew. Perfect name. And his name was 33 degrees. And I asked him back then, it's like 10 years ago. I don't know whether the Devoxx Poland started, I think 10 years ago,
Yeah, it's around 10 years. It's Gregorz.
Exactly. Yeah. Great guy, really passionate. He created a magazine and showed me this at Java 1 and say, look, I have a Java magazine. It's crazy. And he starts a conference, invited me to the 33 degrees. And I asked him, why 33 degrees? And he had the name from a science fiction movie. And I said, this is great. And then he created Devoxx. I just didn't like, the fact that he renamed the conference to Devoxx because Devoxx was Belgium and whatever. So, but he was passionate about Devoxx. So this is a little bit downside of the Devoxxes all over the place. But I would say right now is a good thing because conferences are not doing that well. It's my observation, right? So after the pandemic is a little bit down. So for Devoxx is great because Java is more visible. Without Devoxx it would be even worse because lots of conferences will die. So, but
Yeah. Well, I mean, in Gregorz's case, he was in a cinema complex as well, with 33 degrees. And he's a very passionate and he's very motivated. He's really also an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And he is always looking for new ideas and new angles. And he really wanted to grow his event. So I contacted me and said, I'm only interested if you go to a bigger venue because it will have an impact on your attendees. And he basically doubled it just by rebranding it.
And the funny stuff was he scheduled the Devoxx and the venue was not ready, the very first one. And he invited me, saying, this is the biggest conference venue in either Poland or Krakow. It's a huge one.
Yeah, it's big.
But I'm really afraid it's not going to be ready for Devoxx, right? And I said, okay, this was the beginning. This was crazy. And
But it's the same with Greece. I mean, Patroklos, he really had the balls to start a conference which was Voxx Days Athens, right in the middle when they had this economic meltdown, basically. And he said, like, if I'm successful during, a low economical situation, I will definitely be successful if the economy picks up again.
Yeah.
And he this year transformed it into Devoxx Greece with 1,250 attendees, and
Perfect.
he's really flourishing and doing an amazing job. And he's like one of the guys where he invites so many new speakers which I've never heard about. And he really tries, he has an eye for new talents and new topics, etc. And then this really works, again, in both ways, where I really learn from him. And yeah, it's really nice to see those synergies. It's really fun.
Perfect. What we should do, I should re-invite you back in 1 year, and to talk what's new on the horizon. What's with ChatGPT? Is the virtual Stefan, Stefan GPT or whatever what's happening? Where people can find you on the internet? The Devoxx, if they would like, or when it opens. So when the 5 minutes happens,
Yeah. So it's the 16th of August on 9 o'clock Central European summertime. And yeah, I'm assuming it's going to be gone in 5 minutes. That's why we do 2 batches. But the second batch last year was gone in 2 seconds. So everybody was like refreshing. And so, but yeah, if you go to twitter.com/Devoxx, you will find it. The website for Belgium is devoxx.be. But the overall website for all the Devoxx is devoxx.com. And that's where you can find all the details about it.
And you on Twitter? What's your Twitter handle?
The Twitter is Stefan007 from James Bond.
007.
Stefan is BHAN.
How many transactions per second you got during the registration phase? You know that?
So we have, it's a Kubernetes cluster with 3 pods, and it reaches maximum 20% CPU. So it's almost not busy with 3 pods. It's based on open source software by Alpha.io. So he basically says Tino got inspired by Devoxx and so on, and he started his own project, and it scales really well. And yeah, that's it. I remember we had I think it was 3,000 people trying to subscribe, but we only had 2,000 tickets. So, and people could, lots of people from the same company try to get in.
Okay.
And once you're in, you could last year buy 50 tickets. This year, we're going to reduce it to 10 because we really want to spread it and give people more opportunity. But yeah, we're definitely going to have a bit more analytics this year, see how crazy.
Yeah, you should publish this. This would be a cool project, So the peak time.
We tweeted a few stats for sure, like with the whole setup and the memory that we use, etc.
Yeah.
But it scaled very well. It wasn't really a problem. I think Ticketmaster should have a look at that project.
Of course.
With, Tyler Swift.
Thank you a lot. It was fun to chat with you. It was really interesting conversation.
Likewise, Adam. It's always a pleasure to meet you and see you also in action. I think we know each other already, for 20 years or more.
Yeah.
So it's really fun to see also you're still very active and passionate about Java.
Maybe Python soon, right? So with you. Okay. Thank you. Bye.
You're welcome. See you.